Welcome to OSM, Operation Safe Mode. Peace be with you. As I promised, I would continue to update you on my health and share a little spiritual reflection as often as I can while I continue through chemotherapy. I just completed my 20th round of chemotherapy. This past week, physically, I've been working out every day, lifting weights a little bit, nothing too heavy, walking, and I think that it's really helping me recover quicker from the chemotherapy. This is Monday after chemo, and I feel pretty good tonight. So we're going to continue on. We'll go through till June 19th, which is my birthday, when I'll have my next scan. And everything is progressing in the same direction, so really isn't much to report there, which makes me feel very good. But you know, one of the things that physically, why I started to work out a little bit and try to get myself back in shape, not only that I lost a lot of muscle tone and everything through these last couple months, is that I want to get away from that mentality of always thinking about being in chemotherapy. And then this quote came up, and I thought this is a perfect way for us to look at it. It says, "Bow humbly under God's mighty hand, so that in due time he may lift you high. Cast all your cares on him, because he cares for you." And I think that humbly we have to say, this is my state in life. It's not the perfect state of life that maybe I had when I wore a younger man's clothes. But when we bow to God in humility, under his mighty hand, he's always going to raise us up. He's going to raise us up enough that we can do what he desires us to do, in the way he desires us to do it. And the reason that is so true is because he does care for us. So if he cares for us and we hold on to our own cares, we're kind of getting our own cares in the way of his love. So that's kind of my mentality going into these warmer months. It's just to continue to think, look, you know what? I'm going to bow under God's mighty hand, and he's going to raise me up. I'm going to be able to do the things that I love to do at the level he desires me to do them. I'm not going to have any worries and cares, because really, what more do I need? You know, God really loves me, so that's where I am physically. I'm just going to continue to do those things, hopefully get physically stronger, and that will help me in recovery time with each and every one of the chemos that I have. As you know, we just celebrated Divine Mercy this past weekend, and one of my favorite pictures that depict that scene of St. Thomas coming back to the Lord in his doubt really more than anything else was being overwhelmed with the reality that Jesus would actually rise from the dead. We know that that was a difficult concept. It says in the sacred scriptures, as we heard on Easter Sunday, that they still didn't understand what it meant to rise from the dead. But I like this painting when we think of Divine Mercy Sunday, because here's Jesus taking gently Thomas's hand and guiding it into the wound on his side. Here is exactly what I said in my physical update. When we bow humbly to God, he takes his mighty hand in a gentle way, and he guides us to the things that we need to see and experience. What Thomas gets to experience is what we all need to continue to try and desire to experience, especially if we're going through some trials and tribulations, if we're going through some physical suffering, a loss of loved ones, is that the wound of Christ, which poured forth the waters of baptism and the blood of the Holy Covenant of the Holy Eucharist, as we know is a part of Divine Mercy, that wound allows us to go beyond the human nature of Christ, which he remains having in a resurrected form. But as Jesus guides Thomas's finger, it goes beyond that human nature into the reality of the divine person who Christ is. I like to think of it this way, that when Thomas's doubts were real and kept him away from being with the apostles, missing the first opportunity of Jesus' appearance after the resurrection, it was because of his human nature. It was because he was living in and through his human heart. When our heart hurts, we try to protect ourselves. When our heart hurts and aches with grief and anxiety and fear, we want to hide from the reality of anyone saying, it's going to get better, right? We don't want to hear those words. But once Thomas probes that wound and moves beyond the human flesh of Jesus, he's also moving beyond his own human cares and the emotions of his heart. What he enters into is that divine, that place of our own soul that now radiates with desiring something more than a number of days, desiring more than being free from pain, desiring something more, and that is the pure love of Jesus Christ. So suffering becomes the gateway between that human experience of our heart and of our senses to that spiritual, that fullness of our soul, which pain cannot touch in the same way. Suffering allows us to be able to be one with Christ in what he was trying to accomplish on the cross. And that is to die for our sins, to let suffering that we share with him be a part of the journey into the greater part of the mystery of who we will become. So on Divine Mercy Sunday, we're asked to do two things. If we're suffering in some sort of way, if we are in an ailment or we're full of anxiety, maybe even in a place of despair almost, and we don't want to hear anybody tell us, things are going to get better. We need to be able to allow Christ to accompany us in that pain. Humbly allow his hand to raise us up. Secondly, divine mercy means that we don't want to be judged justly by God. We want justice to point out our human weakness and our sin, but covered in his mercy, in his love, that will free us from that and raise us up and make us whole. So when we suffer, let us remember not to stay in the human sense of suffering. Let us be brave enough to allow Jesus to take our hand and push it beyond his human existence that we're so familiar with and come into the beauty of his divine person. So beautiful when the apostles first saw him in the transfiguration, they didn't want to leave. So beautiful and overwhelming that it was hard for them to even believe it was true. They thought maybe perhaps he was a ghost. But as soon as they understood that he was freeing them from their human weakness, they were able to have the courage to become that divine gift that will live forever in heaven. So I hope this helps you in the place of your own suffering, or perhaps maybe in the difficulties of living out that day-to-day life. Perseverance, as I spoke about the last time, is a great gift, but also leaving things behind that are human allows Jesus not to have only become like us in flesh, but that we become like him in the resurrection.